Gather round, little ones, and let me tell you a tale, a magical story about Poppy the Pocket Mouse and the Lost Lullaby. This is a story of courage, kindness, and the power of a song to bring joy to the world. It reminds us that even the smallest among us can make a big difference, and that even in the darkest of times, hope can always be found. Poppy was no ordinary mouse. Oh no, not at all. Poppy was a special mouse, a tiny speck of fluff with whiskers that twitched with curiosity and a heart overflowing with love. She lived in a cozy little pocket, a secret haven sewn onto the apron of a very kind baker named Mrs. Bumble. Mrs. Bumble wasn't just any baker either. She was a culinary artist, a mistress of dough and delight. She baked the most delicious bread in the whole wide world. Bread that smelled of sunshine and honey, a symphony of golden crust and soft, pillowy insides. Her bread wasn't just food, it was an experience, a hug in every bite. And Poppy's pocket home, nestled against Mrs. Bumble's warm side, always smelled just as lovely, a perpetual aroma of warmth and sweetness, a constant reminder of the deliciousness that surrounded her. Imagine waking up every day to the scent of freshly baked bread. Poppy was a tiny mouse, even for a mouse. We're talking exceptionally small, small enough to fit snugly, almost invisibly in Mrs. Bumble's pocket, which she did most of the day. It was her observation post, her safe space, her front row seat to the delightful drama of the bakery. From her vantage point, she would listen to the comforting sounds of the bakery, the gentle whirring of the mixer, a rhythmic hum that was like a lullaby in itself, the happy chatter of customers, their voices filled with anticipation for the treats they were about to enjoy, and, most importantly, Mrs. Bumble's sweet singing, a melody that held the bakery together. Mrs. Bumble had a special lullaby she sang while she kneaded the dough. It wasn't just any lullaby, it was a magical lullaby, a song woven with secrets and infused with love. It was a song passed down through generations of Bumble bakers, a musical recipe for perfection. The legend said that the lullaby held the very essence of happiness and that it had the power to influence the world around it. And indeed, it did. It made the bread rise perfectly, creating that light and airy texture that everyone adored. It made the flowers in her window box bloom brighter, their colors more vibrant, their fragrance more intoxicating. The lullaby seemed to imbue them with extra life, a spark of pure joy, and it even made grumpy Mr. Grumbles, who lived next door and was known for his perpetually sour disposition, crack a tiny smile. Mr. Grumbles, with his bushy eyebrows and disapproving frown, was a testament to the lullaby's extraordinary power. But one blustery autumn day, a day when the leaves danced in a frenzy and the wind howled like a mischievous wolf, disaster struck. The wind, a powerful and unpredictable force, roared through the town, swirling and snatching the lullaby right out of Mrs. Bumble's mouth. It was gone, just like that, and a flash of wind and a whisper of music, whisked away on the wind to who knows where. One moment it was there, filling the bakery with its warmth, and the next it was gone, leaving a void in its wake. Mrs. Bumble was terribly sad. Her heart ached with the loss of her beloved lullaby, the song that had been a part of her life for as long as she could remember. Her bread wasn't rising as high, the texture was off, and the taste wasn't quite as heavenly. The flowers in her window box drooped, their vibrant colors fading, their petals losing their luster. Even Mr. Grumbles looked extra grumpy, his frown deeper, his complaints louder. Poppy, snuggled in her pocket, felt the change too. The bakery felt empty, devoid of its usual warmth and joy. The air was heavy, the atmosphere somber. The absence of the lullaby was palpable, a missing ingredient in the recipe of happiness. It was like a light had gone out, leaving everything a little darker, a little colder. Poppy knew she had to do something. She couldn't stand to see Mrs. Bumble so sad. She was a small mouse, perhaps the smallest in the whole wide world, but she had a big heart, a spirit of adventure, and an unwavering loyalty to her beloved baker. She decided to go on an adventure, a perilous journey to find the lost lullaby and restore happiness to the bakery and to Mrs. Bumble's heart. "Don't worry, Mrs. Bumble," she squeaked, her voice tiny but filled with determination, though Mrs. Bumble couldn't hear her. She was too lost in her sadness to notice the tiny mouse stirring in her pocket. "I'll find your song, I promise." It was a promise made from the depths of her tiny heart, a promise she intended to keep, no matter the challenges. And so, Poppy, fueled by her love for Mrs. Bumble and her unwavering determination, climbed out of the warm, safe pocket and onto the checkered floor of the bakery. The bakery, which usually felt so big and friendly, a playground of deliciousness, now seemed enormous and a little daunting, a labyrinth of towering objects and unfamiliar scents. She scurried past giant sacks of flour, each one a mountain of powdery whiteness, mountains of sugar, glistening crystals piled high, and a forest of rolling pins, looming like giant trees. Her tiny nose was twitching, working overtime, trying to catch a whiff of the missing lullaby, a trace of its melody, a hint of its magical essence. She was following her instincts, trusting her senses, determined to find the lost song. Finally, she reached the door. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of daylight peeking through, letting in a gust of chilly wind, a reminder of the blustery day that had stolen the lullaby. Poppy knew with unwavering certainty that the lullaby had gone that way, carried off by the mischievous wind. Taking a deep breath, summoning all her courage, she squeezed through the opening and into the bustling town square. The town square was a whirlwind of activity, a chaotic symphony of sights and sounds. Leaves danced in the wind, swirling like golden confetti. People hurried by with their coats pulled tight, their faces buried in scarves, and the sound of the wind was almost deafening, a constant roar that threatened to drown out all other sounds. It was hard to imagine finding a single song, a delicate melody in all that chaos. It seemed like an impossible task, a needle in a haystack. But Poppy was determined. She wouldn't be deterred by the noise and the confusion. She focused on the wind, the very force that had taken the lullaby, and decided to follow it, trusting that it would lead her to her lost song. She followed the wind, her little paws padding softly, almost silently on the cobblestones, her tiny body buffeted by the gusts. First, she came to the park, where the trees were shedding their leaves like golden tears, a melancholic beauty in their farewell to summer. She saw squirrels burying nuts, preparing for the long winter ahead, birds flying south for the winter, their wings carrying them towards warmer climates, and children playing tag, their laughter echoing through the park, a reminder of the joy that still existed in the world. She asked them all if they had seen or heard a lullaby, but they all shook their heads. They were too busy with their own autumn adventures, too preoccupied with their own tasks to notice a lost song. Then she followed the wind to the river, where the water rushed and gurgled, a constant, restless flow. She saw ducks paddling, their feathers glistening in the sunlight, fish jumping, their scales flashing silver, and a grumpy old frog sitting on a lily pad, his eyes half closed, his expression sour. She asked them all if they had seen or heard a lullaby, but they hadn't. The river's song was too loud, they said, its constant murmur drowning out any other melodies. Poppy was starting to feel discouraged. The wind was strong, the world was big, and the lullaby seemed impossible to find. Doubts crept into her mind, whispering that she was too small, too insignificant to succeed in her quest. But then she remembered Mrs. Bumble's sad face, the droop in her shoulders, the tears in her eyes, and she knew she couldn't give up. She had to keep going, for Mrs. Bumble, for the bakery, for the sake of happiness itself. She followed the wind past the river and into the Whispering Woods. The Whispering Woods was a magical place, a realm of ancient trees and hidden secrets, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind, their voices rustling through the leaves like hushed conversations, and the moonlight dappled through the leaves like silver coins, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the forest floor. The woods were quiet, except for the rustling of the leaves, a constant murmur that seemed to be filled with secrets. Poppy scurried along the forest floor, her heart pounding in her chest, her senses on high alert. Suddenly, she heard something, a faint, sweet sound, like a melody carried on the breeze, a whisper of music that tugged at her heartstrings. She followed the sound deeper into the woods, past towering trees that reached towards the sky like ancient guardians, and mossy rocks that glowed with an eerie green light, until she came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient oak tree, its branches reaching up to the sky like gnarled fingers, its roots delving deep into the earth, a symbol of strength and resilience. And nestled in the branches, bathed in moonlight, she saw something extraordinary. It was a tiny, shimmering bird, no bigger than her thumb. The bird was made of pure moonlight, its feathers radiating a soft, ethereal glow. It was a creature of pure magic, a being of pure light, and it was singing the lullaby, the very lullaby that had been snatched from Mrs. Bumble's lips. Poppy gasped. She had never seen anything so beautiful, so magical. It was a sight that took her breath away, a moment of pure wonder. She crept closer, careful not to startle the moonbeam bird, her tiny heart filled with awe and admiration. "Excuse me," she squeaked, her voice trembling a little, barely audible above the rustling of the leaves. "Are you singing Mrs. Bumble's lullaby?" The moonbeam bird stopped singing and tilted its tiny head. Its eyes, like tiny stars, twinkled with curiosity, reflecting the moonlight and radiating a gentle warmth. "I am," it chirped, its voice like tinkling bells, a sound so pure and sweet that it made Poppy's heart soar. "The wind brought it to me. It was lost and lonely, so I gave it a safe place to rest." "Oh, thank you," Poppy cried, her voice filled with gratitude. "Mrs. Bumble is so sad without it. It makes her bread rise, her flowers bloom, and even makes Mr. Grumbles a little less grumpy." She explained the importance of the lullaby, its power to bring joy and happiness, its role in the delicate balance of the bakery and the town. The moonbeam bird smiled. "Then you must take it back to her," it said. "But be careful. Lullabies are fragile things. You must carry it gently in your heart, protect it with your love, and cherish it always." Poppy nodded. "I will," she promised, her voice filled with sincerity. "I will protect it with all my heart." The moonbeam bird sang the lullaby one more time, its voice echoing through the clearing, filling the woods with its magic. And as it sang, Poppy listened with all her might, memorizing every note, every word, every nuance of the melody. The lullaby filled her heart with warmth and joy, and she felt ready to face anything, empowered by the magic of the song. Then the moonbeam bird gently placed the lullaby, like a tiny seed of music, into Poppy's heart. Poppy felt a warm glow spread through her body, a feeling of pure love and happiness. The lullaby was now a part of her, a treasure she would carry with her always. "Thank you," she said again. "Thank you so much." Her heart overflowed with gratitude for the moonbeam bird's kindness and for the gift of the lullaby. The moonbeam bird chirped goodbye and disappeared into the moonlight, its light fading into the darkness. Poppy turned and hurried back through the whispering woods, her heart filled with the lullaby, her spirit soaring with hope. The woods seemed less daunting now, the wind less fierce. She knew she could do it. She could bring the lullaby back to Mrs. Bumble and restore happiness to the bakery. She ran back to the river, past the park, and finally back to the bakery. The door was still slightly ajar, a beacon of hope in the gathering darkness. She squeezed through and into the warm, familiar smells of bread and honey, a scent that filled her with comfort and nostalgia. Bumble was sitting at her table, her head in her hands. She looked so sad, her shoulders slumped, her spirit broken. Poppy scurried over to her and climbed up her apron, reaching her pocket. She snuggled into the warm, familiar space and closed her eyes, focusing all her energy on the lullaby in her heart. Then, with all her might, she sang the lullaby. It was a tiny squeak of a song, barely audible, but it was enough. It was enough to spark a memory, to ignite a feeling, to awaken the magic within Mrs. Bumble. Mrs. Bumble looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. She heard a faint, sweet melody, a melody she thought she had lost forever. And then she remembered the words. She started to sing along, her voice a little shaky at first, but then growing stronger and more confident. As she sang, the bakery came alive again. The bread in the oven started to rise, its aroma filling the air with sweetness. The flowers in the window box perked up, their colors brightening, their petals unfurling, and even Mr. Grumbles, who was passing by outside, stopped and listened, a tiny smile gracing his lips, a glimmer of happiness in his eyes. Mrs. Bumble finished the lullaby, her heart filled with joy. She looked down at her pocket and smiled, her eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Thank you, Poppy. You brought my song back to me." Poppy, exhausted but happy, snuggled deeper into her pocket. She felt the warmth of Mrs. Bumble's love surrounding her, and she knew she was home. Mrs. Bumble finished her baking, singing the lullaby with every batch. The bakery was filled with the sweet smell of sunshine and honey and the happy chatter of customers. As the day drew to a close, Mrs. Bumble closed up the bakery and went to her cozy little cottage. She changed into her nightgown, brushed her teeth, and climbed into bed. Poppy, still snuggled in her pocket, felt the gentle rocking of Mrs. Bumble's footsteps. She yawned, a tiny mouse yawn, and closed her eyes. Mrs. Bumble turned off the light, and the room was filled with the soft glow of the moon. She reached into her pocket, and gently stroked Poppy's head. "Good night, my little friend," she whispered. "Thank you for being so brave." Poppy purred, a tiny mouse purr, and snuggled even closer. She felt safe and loved, and the lullaby echoed softly in her heart. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the sweet melody of Mrs. Bumble's lullaby to all the sleeping creatures in the world. The moon shone brightly, casting a soft silver light over everything. And in Mrs. Bumble's pocket, Poppy the pocket mouse drifted off to sleep, dreaming of moonbeam birds and magical lullabies. She dreamed of whispering woods and kind bakers and the warm, safe feeling of being home. The bakery was quiet, the town was still, and the world was at peace. All was right in the world, and Poppy the pocket mouse slept soundly in her pocket, dreaming sweet dreams. Good night, sleep tight.